Nigh on 2 years ago, with the aid of one of the most influential audio products on the market, the Hifiman Susvaras, Convince Me Audio launched its first review. And it seems somewhat fitting. 2 years later, on the anniversary of the channel, we get to review one of the most exciting products that's hit the market in the last few months. The high-end audio manufacturer Holo Audio brings the latest iteration to their lineup. This is CMA bringing you the review of the Holo Audio Bliss. Let's begin. A special thank you goes out to Jeff and to Tim for sending this unit, the Holo Audio Bliss, in for review. There are a couple of variants of this unit. There is the L1, the L2 and the KTE model. The L1 variant and L2 variant of the Bliss comes with copper wiring, nickel-plated brass for the fastens, and using quite a cost-effective round wire for the O-type transformer inside the unit itself. But when you go up to the KTE model, you get flat wire for the O-type transformer, silver wiring, silver and beryllium fastens, audio node for the capacitors, and similar to the Holo Red, the DDC and streamer up here, you get the nano fuse there as well. So we get quite a little touch up from the L1 and L2 variant to the KTE model. Personally, I've never reviewed the L1 and L2 models of the Holo Audio product, so I can't really judge how much of a difference there is between this, the flagship KTE. My May DAC has been a KTE variant as well, and so has the Spring 3 that I reviewed last year. Review up here. KTE model for that too. The Spring 2 was an extreme edition, so pretty much similar to the upper end of the spectrum, the highest variant you can get, and that's been rather difficult to actually compare to the L1 and L2 because none of those units have actually come in for review as of yet. So these are all the flagships, top of the line units from Holo Audio that we review here. This Class A unit weighs 10 kilograms. It is constructed in the same manner as the DAC underneath, the Holo Audio May KTE, and the same as the the Serene underneath the unit. You should not be stacking a pre and a headphone amplifier from Holo Audio in this manner. This is just for the review, just so that you guys can see all of the units stacked on top of each other. First and foremost, this is 40 kilograms and your desk has got to be as strong as a freaking elephant to support this. Second of all, the Serene is a Class A. The Bliss is a very, very hot 60 watt Class A headphone amplifier as well. And both of them will turn your desk into a furnace. This is why it's recommended you only stack the Bliss on top of the May or on top of the Spring 3. Let's start with the front of the unit. As you can see, obviously the housing of the Bliss is similar to the Serene and similar to the May. They share the same DNA, they share the same construction and meticulous attention to detail. Let's start on the right hand side of the unit on the front. We have a relay controlled stepped attenuator going up from minus 72 dB all the way up to plus 12 dB. This is showcased on the screen in dB form in the middle of the unit on this rectangular screen here. On the Holo Audio Bliss, as you go up in volume, the amp attenuates the gain simultaneously so that for the volume you have set for yourself and for your drivers at that specific point, the gain is either increased or decreased accordingly. You don't have to change the gain on the amp to low, medium, high like you do with most regular amps. This takes that out of the equation and attenuates itself. Next to the stepped attenuator, we have a mute button. This, once clicked, the relay clicks, you can no longer turn up the volume, bringing it back online. The next button along, first and foremost, is the input. This is where you change between the XLR and RCA. Pressing the menu button again, this is where you have access to high Z and low Z for your low impedance headphones and high impedance headphones, and also to be able to access the pre at the back of the unit. They are separate to the headphone outs on the front here, so that unfortunately the volume does not remember its position, so that if your volume is all the way up here, but then you go to pre, you will be given the speakers that specific volume that you set previously. I wish this part of the unit would go back down all the way to 0, so that your speakers basically start at ground zero, but unfortunately it will remember the previous volume from the headphones, so that you have that specific volume at hand when you switch over to speakers. But if you always turn the volume all the way down like this and you go to pre, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. The next menu along deals with the display brightness. Moving over to the left hand side of the unit, first and foremost we have the Pentacon connection, balanced 4.4, then 4-pin XLR, then 1/4 inch jack, single-ended. The impedance of all of these is slightly different to each other. First and foremost is 0.02 for the 4-pin XLR. Make a note of this, we will come back to this. The Pentacon is 2 ohms and the 1/4 inch jack is 1 ohm. But when we go to high Z, this changes obviously, as you can imagine, to 17 ohm for the Pentacon, 8.5 for the 1/4 inch jack, and 15 respectively for the 4-pin XLR. Swinging the unit around, you can see the back of the unit is rather straightforward, starting with the AC power supply, then 2 balanced XLR inputs, a pair of RCAs, one of them being in, the other being out, and simultaneously a pre, and another XLR balanced out, acting as the pre. Like any head amp, as you can see, the unit's very straightforward, very elegantly designed, very simple, and extremely intuitive when it comes to functionality. Let's discuss some of the specifications. This unit outputs 12 watts at 32 ohms and 2.5 watts at 300 ohms. This is a beast. This unit is an absolute beast. So that covers the headphone amplifier. To outline this review, I'm going to tell you how I've put this amplifier through the review process and what equipment we have used. During the 3 months testing, this unit has been here. First and foremost, when necessary, the Holo Audio Serene Pre was inputting into the Bliss. To bring an alternate perspective to pair up against the May DAC, thank you to Jez, one of our viewers, we have the Chord Dave, the Chord M Scaler. A special thank you goes out to Mo for lending me his TT2. A special thank you goes out to Chord for the Hugo 2 and the To Go. My own Luxury and Precision P6 Pro, Ladder DAC, DAP. A very special thank you goes out to IFI for the Diablo. The Mojo 2 is mine, plus all of these headphones. And all of these headphones running along the side of me. I wanted to bring you a comprehensive review where there was no stones unturned. Even going as far as powering this entire beast of a stack. Thank you to IFI for the IFI Supernova and the IFI Nova and their power station. Right now on the desk, just for the Bliss review, we have close to $70,000 at hand. Most likely exceeding 70. I believe that this amplifier will stand the test of time, and this amplifier is absolute endgame for a headphone desktop setup experience. There will be comparisons against the HM1, against the Dave internal amp, against the Ferrum OOR-HYPSOS, and the multitude of other amplifiers we have had here for review. You will be able to jump around in the chapters down below according to your tastes. But I highly recommend, if you like the sound of the Holo Audio Bliss, you subscribe, you press the notification icon, and you watch the review right the way through. Let's begin. Okay, so that covers the DAC for this amplifier. That covers the power supplies and power cables for this amplifier and $10,500 stack system. The interconnects have been provided to us via double helix. Thank you, Pete. I very much appreciate it. These are their Chakron 3s. These mammoth BNC connection cables are from Jez. Thank you, mate. I really do appreciate it. They look absolutely sick and they sound interesting. What about headphones? For this review, we are encompassing IEMs all the way to super flagship headphones. Hifiman Susvara 1266 HD800S. The Focal Utopia on my right. The Atrium, the Caldera, the Verite Open, and for IEMs, the super flagships here. Ambient Acoustics MAD 24, and its brethren here, the MAD 16s. Moondrop variations, Kato, Aria have been used also. I talked about the impedance of the amplifier on the headphone outputs. This will be in the sound section for the IEM. Keep an eye out for that. So, as you can see, no stones unturned, no equipment too sparse. Let's discuss why you're here. The sound. Using these beasts, the Hifiman Susvaras, for this initial sound breakdown, what does the Bliss sound like? Every amplifier has its own specific sound characteristics. The Holo Audio Bliss has been synergized so well with the Holo Audio May. It feels as though you are connecting to the output stage of the May, the way Chord DACs deliver their output stage. It genuinely feels like you're increasing the volume of the XLRs on the May and getting the full scope and characteristics of the amp, which is wide, vast, tall, deep in its stage, holographic, highly texturally informative when it comes to texture information, incisive, visceral, punchy, and most importantly, melodic. I recently reviewed Zahl HM1. The review is up here. And I described that amplifier as clean, slightly clinical, slightly analytical, but marginally. The May is the polar opposite of this characteristic. It concentrates on a black background. It focuses on textural information, realism, and delivers a high scope of timbral information. It's seductive, it's musical, and I think it's one of my favorite sounding headphone amplifiers, period. Where HM1 is leaning towards a brighter sound signature, not brightly uncomfortable, just a brighter sound signature, the Bliss goes the opposite direction. It's music by moonlight on a landscape of black background. Using this unit as the focal point of the review, the Hifiman Susvaras are one of the hardest to drive headphones on the planet. Their sensitivity is anywhere between 75 to 83 dB depending on who you ask. Now, I ran these usually on the benchmark AHB2 monoblocks. This just kept giving and giving. It was absolutely incredible. For the very first time ever, I can safely say the Hifiman Susvaras does not need to be run on a speaker amp any longer. If you're planning to buy one benchmark for the Hifiman Susvaras, it's no longer necessary. The Holo Audio Bliss provides the same punch, better tonality, better textural information, and the same amount of sub-bass, visceral impact, and open stage for these headphones, without the inconvenience of adapters, etc. Because the benchmark by itself is $3,000. Then you need a super flagship to use with this power amp, such as the Holo Audio Serene here, the KTE, this unit is 3,300 already, so that's 6,300. This does not even include your DAC or the Susvaras themselves. The Holo Audio Bliss mitigates this. Not only that, providing you with an incredible pre simultaneously. Is it as good as the mono blocks 2 benchmark versus 1? We'll discuss that in the comparison section. For now, we can put a singular AHB2 to rest as a headphone amp because Bliss is not messing around. It's giving you 12 watts at 32 ohms. It's giving you full control from something as sensitive as the ambient acoustics MAT 24s at 2.3 ohms with no hiss, all the way up to this, the Hifiman Susvaras or the Abyss AB1266 at 88 dB. Never fear, it will drive anything with perfect performance. No compromising, whether in build quality or in performance. It brings everything it has to the table. So the Hifiman Susvaras are driven to 99.98% of their potential when we're talking about this category under $10,000. It's remarkable, it's exceptional, it's texturally rich, it's visceral, it's impactful, and you don't feel as though you're missing anything. And it's put the benchmark AHB2 singular unit to bed. What about this one? This weird thing that landed at Roswell in 1945 or 7 or whenever it was. This is also another particular headphone that requires finesse, control, and tremendous amounts of power and a lot of good precision. The Bliss drives the AB1266 perfectly. Though I feel as though these headphones do better on tube than they do on solid state, the actual performance is exceptional. You are not restricting the open stage, whether in depth or width. You are not sacrificing on detail. Though this AB1266 Fi is a V-shaped headphone, slightly spicy in the treble, it tends to tame this a tiny bit. Give it a nice brushwork, a little roundedness without the loss of detail. And that's what the remarkable thing is about this Bliss. It's the fact that you can throw any headphone at it and nothing seems out of place. Tonally, it makes anything sound incredibly good. Seductive, enjoyable, where the amp just disappears. Emphatically, it's the best sounding headphone amplifier under $10,000. Why are you still here? You should be buying this if you're in the market for a headphone amplifier in the $3,300 category. I think it performs as good as a $6,000 category. I recently reviewed the 23R from Enloom. This crushes that, but we will discuss that more in the comparison section. Swinging over to IEMs, we talked about the impedance. The 0.02 for the 4-pin XLR, if you're using an adapter to Pentacon, mitigates any worries that you may have where the 2 ohm load for the Pentacon connection may incur. And sometimes this could be enough, depending on the IEM, to change its sound characteristics. Sometimes for the better, providing some density in the mid bass and a little thicker sound, and other times overpowering, overshooting, and actually making the scenario worse. Single-ended is 1 ohm. This is far less problematic than the Pentacon, but most of the time manufacturers seem to be providing a lot of 4.4 cables with IEM, so this could be an issue. If it is, I recommend getting an adapter for the 4-pin XLR. Why has Holo done this? It's completely and utterly a protection thing. There are ways around this, but if you short a 1/4 inch or a Pentacon, you can't short a 4-pin XLR because the positive and negative, hot and cold, all the pins are separate. You can short a 4.4 when you're pulling the jack out, or a 6.3, because the likelihood of touching is possible. And therefore, at that point in time, the amplifier attempts to draw, I don't know, me and Cameron were chatting about this, he did the math, it was like over 200 watts or something, it will instantly fry the amplifier. But if it's at 2 ohms or 1 ohm, we're looking at roughly 8 watts or something, the amp will just shrug it off, seeing as this does 12 watts into 32 ohms anyways. It's a protection thing, it's a security thing, and I don't think it's problematic in the slightest. Using the MAD 24s at 2.3 ohms on the single-ended, I found no discrepancy with the frequency response. It performs like a super flagship headphone. It's almost as good as the Hifiman Susvaras. It's absolutely ridiculous. Open stage, beautiful layering, visceral and textural information is off the charts. There are very few things to complain about this amplifier. If you don't mind the hefty size and the heat, this thing is a bit of an oven. I mean, like, I can keep my toast on this right now and keep it nice and very nice and warm. And obviously the price point. But if you've clicked on this review, you are on the market for this category of products. And I think for what it gives, it's absolutely ridiculous and it's cheap in my estimation. Setting aside the features and functionality of HM1, these two amplifiers go toe to toe in performance, and that is 8,500. Let's discuss synergy with DACs using this large variety of DACs on the table, starting obviously with the Holo Audio May. Now, this unit was partnered with the Bliss. The Bliss was designed with Susvaras in mind and using the May as its counterpart. Obviously, they're from the same family, and it's absolutely incredible. Holographic imaging, textural information. I feel as though I keep reiterating this. The Bliss is incredible for textural information, black background, and tonal balance. And with May being a ladder DAC, providing these strengths from the DAC, you're connecting to the output stage and it feels as though you are listening to the May through and through. But what I came to realize is that the amplifier is so transparent and revealing with other DACs. This comes across and this plays when you start introducing other units to the table. That being the Chord Dave with the M scaler. I always have felt Dave is the counterpart of May, where May provides that organic nature and that slightly roundedness and textual information galore. Dave provides the humongous stage, incisiveness, visceral impact and edge of attack. And simply pushing the button for the input and going left, right, left, right, left, right. You get to experience the May and the Dave in all of their strengths, both going in through the Chakron 3 connectors from Double Helix into the Bliss, both of them using the same supernova cables, providing two sides of the same coin. I love the Dave for electronic music, such as Monster Cat, Infected Mushroom, and fast-paced, edge of attack music like Polythea. And when I switch over to the May, I'm listening to orchestra, live music, music with lyrics, realism, basically Hans Zimmer, and everything else that is in my library. I never found I listened to Dave more than May or May more than Dave, because they both provided such an experience on the Bliss, both bringing their characteristics, and most importantly, the amplifier did not hide the characteristics of Dave so that it sounded too much like May or vice versa, but enhanced and strengthened the DAC capabilities of Dave and when switching over to the May. I am so tempted by the Dave. I'm actually planning on getting rid of some headphones we don't need to get one of these side by side with the May for you guys for reviews of products down the road. So that's a $20,000 DAC with the M scaler. That's a $6,000 DAC by itself. How does Bliss do when you upsample? Does it make any difference to NOS from May or just the Dave by itself? Can the characteristics of upsampling be detected? Yes. Dave seemed a little brighter, a little leaner, and tonally a little different when you introduced the M scaler. But when you introduced the M scaler and went through Bliss, stage opened up even more. So it did not confine itself to a specific stage size. It actually increased with the information that was given it. It's a highly resolving amplifier that contrasts and contracts and delivers whatever information is fed to it and enhances and gives the best of that unit's capability. Textural information was better with Dave, with the M scaler. Separation was much better. Visceral impact was more incisive. And I missed none of that. What if I wanted to connect something like the Hugo 2 with a to-go using the RCA inputs, or Mojo 2 with the RCA inputs, because they're both single-ended, being a Chord product through and through? Well, the characteristics of Hugo 2 came through nicely, slightly soft, slightly rounded like the Cutest. Obviously it's the same DAC as the Cutest in the Hugo 2. It was nice, obviously not on the levels of the Dave. You felt as though visceral impact was less, slightly softer detail, slightly softer imaging. Textural information, tonal balance was better with the Mojo 2, surprisingly so actually. Moving over to the Luxury and Precision P6 Pro, this was basically like having a spring-free with the Bliss. I cannot believe the performance you get out of this DAP. I mean, it's $4,000, is to be expected, but my goodness, wait for the review of that unit. Diablo here provided visceral impact, punch, and actually quite a lot of detail in the treble region, though it was a bit more spicy than the Hugo 2. Being the characteristics of the Diablo, nothing was overly rounded and nothing was hidden. So whatever DAC you end up putting through the Bliss yourself, you will find you will get the characteristics of the DAC through the amp itself. This is the Philips Audio Euphoria Anniversary Edition. We've got a lot of anniversaries today. How does the Tube Pre sound like with Bliss? Should you run a Tube Pre through Bliss? I did. You can. It's mesmerizing. What happens to the tonal balance is you lose a little bit of that black background. You get more of a sunset feel, more of a lush mid-range akin to the characteristics of the Tube. I took the Dave and the M scaler through RCA, through Euphoria, and I took Euphoria single-ended out into Bliss. You gained even more stage. Tonally, the amp changed a little bit to that brighter sound signature in the mid-range, reduced the blackness of the background, but what it did provide was even more musicality. A touch of euphoria, moving away from the solid state a little bit. And I now understand why people use Tube Pre. It sounded better with some headphones than others. Using these babies, they've come back in. This is the Focal Utopia we reviewed. Check the review up here somewhere. It really helped with Utopia. Utopia are sensational on Euphoria. This is why Focal uses this amp. And then added more of control and the incisiveness and visceral impact and technical capabilities of Bliss with a touch of tubes. It was incredible. Same again with the 1266. Those headphones love tubes. You got a better tonality for 1266. It loves tubes. You got even more wider stage, and it tamed the Fi's treble region, which is a little bit spicy. It never feels off on Bliss. It never feels overly sharp, but it's just a little bit more sugar. So Euphoria is definitely one of them tube pre's that you might actually want to invest in. Not just for those, for things like the AHP2 Benchmark 2. The full review for this beautiful unit will be coming shortly. We've gushed enough about Bliss. How does it rank up against some of the industry's best in this category? The Ferrum OOR-HYPSOS, beloved by our community, loved it in the review here. Absolutely fantastic. The Bliss against OOR, I don't think it's even a fair comparison. Genuinely. It's more detailed, bigger stage, more visceral impact, way more power. I mean, it's far larger. The OOR has the size going for it. But the OOR I found overly analytical in low and high gain, and I only ever used it in medium gain because it went through a separate line to the output stage. It was musical, tonally beautiful, tonally rich and beautiful with something like an LCD5, which needed taming in the upper mid-range. Bliss does not have this problem. I always felt as though OOR was a little too rounded for Susvaras, a bit too polite. And yet Bliss is texturally rich, slightly rounded, a little bit laid back like the OOR, and yet provides all of the information without any caveats. I don't know where I found a weakness in the sonic characteristics of this amp. I've been in love with it ever since it broke in. Incidentally, it took like 200 hours to sound its best. It sounded kind of weird at the beginning. It sounded a bit kind of congested and a bit sort of small. I have never believed in solid state breaking previously and prior to this. But I didn't even start the review till at least 200 hours had passed, well over 4 weeks. I have tested this amplifier against many others here. It beats the OOR and the HYPSOS, even with the versatility of the HYPSOS power supply, being able to adjust the voltage. For IEMs, for hard to drive headphones, for headroom, it's ridiculous. Now, how does it fare against the internal amps of something like the TT2 and M scaler or Dave and the M scaler? I have always stated Chord products have a tendency to deliver more performance with their own amplifiers than when you take the DAC out of the environment they're built in. Dave's amplifier, though op-amp based and not overly powerful, is transparent, texturally rich, and highly resolving. And yet, when you A/B between Dave using a Utopia or a Susvara, at very low volumes for Susvara obviously due to power reasons, Bliss is instantly tonally dense, less thin sounding, more detailed, highly texturally informative. Very surprising. Against the TT2, it feels really bizarre. The TT2, with its own DAC and M scaler, still sounded a bit far too Delta Sigma and fake compared to Bliss. And yet when you put the TT2 DAC through Bliss, it was incredible. Against the 23R, it's less warm, though Bliss has a touch of warmth if we're comparing it against the AHB2 and against the HM1. But those both lean towards the brighter sounding signatures without obviously being non-fatiguing, etc. But slightly brighter sounding than Bliss. But the 23R is overly warm, overly tube-like. I think the 23R is a bit more resolving in the treble region. That retrieves detail insanely well. I think bass region is better on Bliss, and I think mid-range Bliss utterly destroys 23R V2, the one I had here specifically, and that's 6,000. Let's break the frequency response of the Bliss down with a track, using Infected Mushrooms, Converting Vegetarians, very first track. Sub-bass is really concise, dense, and has the power to sustain itself during the melody. It does not roll off. I think versus the monoblock AHB2s, that tends to be a bit more impactful and visceral, using 2 power amps at 370 watts at 8 ohms obviously, but not by much. It's more authoritative on something like a Susvara. But all of these basic headphones here, in a manner of drivability, Atrium, Utopia, Lyric, Caldera, Verite Open, etc. Everything on the desk. You find bass is impactful, perfectly controlled, with excellent edge of attack. Climbing up to the mid bass, where the kick drum in this track focuses right there, dead center. It's forceful, actually quite dense. This amplifier versus the HM1 is a lot more dense, and it doesn't feel as lean sounding. That amplifier is lean, mean, and keen and quick. This is dense, tonally rich, texturally rich, and visceral and grandiose. Very grandiose. Elements tend to float in the air and yet have weight and visceral impact and good edge. Upper bass region never makes the treble region sound thin. Lower mids, mid-mids, and upper mids is neutral, steadily rising, textural, open, very detailed, and utterly beautiful. Vocals are very dense, very rich, very lifelike, and you can feel as though you see the expressions on their face. Treble region versus something like a singular benchmark seems a little bit laid back, a little bit more calm, a little bit tonally rich, and a little bit more relaxed. It's not as in your face as HM1 is, though HM1 is very smooth, but that is a lot brighter. This has a black background, that is a lot brighter, and it can be fatiguing. I found it tiring after a while, where with Bliss, I never ever find it fatiguing. It feels like a liquid gold drop. To categorize this entire review, let's do it the old CMA way. Let me paint you a picture. Envision nighttime. There is a party of you. More than 8 people. And the journey is supposed to be a hike in the dark, in the moon and starlight. And yet, the night is so quiet. Every single one of you never loses sight of each other. You are all around each other. Somebody's ahead, climbing up the hill. Somebody's down below, looking up the hill. There are a couple of people investigating over here. There's a couple of people gently walking that way. Within this stage and landscape, every element of sound in a 3D holographic manner are articulate, well-defined, and never lost focus. Whether the crowd, all of you, come together during a dense, wooded track, where the music, for example, is mixed in a closed manner, or everybody's running in a different direction, looking at separate things, focusing on something new. Your mind's eye focuses on every single person. No element is lost, even if you're using a track like Hans Zimmer's Pirates of the Caribbean with 50 instruments on stage. Somebody's shouting in the distance over there, calling you guys to hurry the hell up. Their voice is articulate, remote, and yet crystal clear, definable and findable. Finally, congregating in a clearing with all the woods around you. Maybe there's a lake there, moonlight up above you, bright and yet no smoke in the sky with pitch black background. All of you coming together is how the tracks congregate. Every element of sound where it needs to be. Texturally rich, incisive, delightful, making you forget about the equipment. And that is, like its namesake, what Holo Audio Bliss provides for your music. This is supposed to be the caveat section. If you can afford $3,300, that's not a caveat. That's down to your financial situation. That's an argument between you and your wife and your wallet. That's not a caveat. The caveat would be, this amplifier runs hot. It's Class A and it needs to be free. It needs to breathe. Second of all, it's a huge unit. This thing is 10 kilograms and takes up a very large real estate. I know that is quite important to some of you. But apart from that, sonically, performing-wise, it's one of the most complete systems, units, without caveats, without detriments, I've yet reviewed. With that, let's do the conclusion. Should you buy this? Can you afford it? Yes. This is marking the way for the next few years. I have a feeling this unit's going to be staple on a lot of people's tables, like the May, like the beloved Spring, for the next few years to come. Its design is classic and yet modern. Its build quality is immaculate. Its sound quality is exceptional. Its performance is outstanding. Jeff, Tim, the entire team. This unit is a 5 Tiger product. This unit is a super flagship killer. This unit deserves every praise that gets lavished on it. This unit, for Convince Me Audio, has replaced the benchmark. This unit is here to stay. Post-review. And if you like reviews such as these, join us here. Consider subscribing, press the notification icon so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to get all of these reviews of these products before anyone else, consider joining Patreon, where all of these reviews go live there first. All of your help goes towards paying our cameraman Jamie, who's crouching on my sofa right now, pointing the camera at me, and to Bitwolf, editing the reviews. Currently, he has gone insane and edited 20 reviews for you guys. I can't believe what he's done. I really do appreciate all of my team's work. Jamie, Bitwolf, and my baby sis. You guys are the best.
Since I've been summoned here already, hello, it's me, Bitwolf, I also have to mention something that Koji obviously forgot about. A very special thank you for KitsuneHiFi for sending Bliss for the review. If you would like to purchase Bliss or something else from Holo Audio, such as May or Spring, go check out KitsuneHiFi if you are located in North America or Japan. Magna Hi-Fi if you are located in Europe, SonorisAudio for South Korea, Vividhifi for India, and Indie Hi-Fi for Australia. All the links down in the description.
Until the next one. Peace.